So outside of my faith and family, I mean, this is what I do. I hunt and I play music. I was born and raised in a small town called Montdale, PA in northeast Pennsylvania. Grew up, started hunting when I was 5 years old. I mean, I was hooked. My dad and grandpa would always tell me as I got older, like, you know, it'd be 10 inches of snow out there and freezing cold, and I'd walk every step with them. The atmosphere of hunting that I fell in love with early, it wasn't necessarily going out there and shooting anything. It was going out there and, you know, getting to see my grandpa, be with my dad, be with their buddies, be at the diner, and that camaraderie and that energy and atmosphere of the hunting heritage that we all love was something that I was hooked to immediately at a young age. I love the moments that it brings you, the memories, the friendships. I mean, some of my greatest friendships that I have in life have come from hunting, have come from being out in the woods, and music as well. You know, music was something that came later into my life. It was something that came through, you know, some difficult times in my life. But for me, like I said, outside of my faith and outside of my family, I hunt, I fish, and I play music. And I love everything about the outdoor lifestyle and being outside and being in the woods. So Montdale really is a cool town. I mean, for me, it's home. It's where I'll always call home. I love it here. All my family's from here. My wife, her family's all from here. I had some amazing teachers that taught me so much about life and education, but I also had some amazing teacher and a principal who would let me come in late because, hey, we all know it's turkey season. I've got a little bit of time before I need to be at homeroom. And, you know, if the turkeys are gobbling, I'm going to stick out in the woods for a little bit. Got out of elementary school and got into high school. You know, I started getting really involved in sports. I really liked basketball, I really liked baseball, and I loved football. The only downside to football early on for me was the fact that it ran pretty much throughout all of hunting season. I can't be missing time in the woods for practice. And finally I was like, you know what? Let's give it a try. Let's get out there and let's play. And my father-in-law was actually my coach at the time, and I always tell my wife, I was like, you know, you look back at football, and I can remember my father-in-law yelling at me on the sidelines sometimes because I thought I knew it all out there on the field. And I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, although to the audience or anybody watching the game, they're like, man, you know, coach is getting after Hosie a little bit. I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, I know he's saying, man, I really hope this is the man who marries my daughter. So when I graduated high school in 2003, I went to play football at Wilkes University and got to play my first season of my freshman year. And 3 days into my first winter break, we were going deer hunting. It had snowed all night, the roads were icy. A good buddy of mine, unfortunately, lost control in some ice, and we hit a tree. I was injured extremely bad. My buddy was life flighted from the scene. Our other friend, who was actually sitting between us, he just had some glass in his face. He made out all right, but I mean, I remember telling him, I don't know exactly what's wrong, but my neck is killing me. You know, like my neck, and I have a shooting pain down through my chest. And they made sure that my neck was stable. They got me onto a board and into the ambulance. And unfortunately, after a bunch of tests and all kinds of x-rays and scans and all that stuff, they realized I had a very unstable fracture in my neck. I think it was called a type 2 odontoid fracture. So they life flighted me from Scranton down to Philly, and went through all these surgeries and ended up in a halo. You know, I'm sitting there in the halo, and I remember saying to my parents, you know, I think that I'd like to learn how to play guitar. So, you know, when I'm sitting there with my neck broken in a halo, I get my first guitar. And I remember I got that guitar and I was like, man, 3 to 4 hours, I'm gonna be a rock star. 30 seconds in, I'm like, I'll never play guitar again. In that time period, after having my guitar, I remember it was over in the corner one day and my sister Marla came up and she played the riff from Creedence Down on the Corner, that bound, down, 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 down. And I was like, I could tell what song that is. I'm like, I don't even know my own sister. I was like, how do you know how to play guitar, you know? And she's like, oh, my friend Tommy taught me. I was like, man. It was a cool moment that she came up and played that guitar and played that song, and it kind of gave me a little bit of motivation, I guess, to where it's like, well, I could at least learn that. You know, Marla can teach me that at least. Months later, in August of 2004, will forever be, I can honestly say, was the hardest thing that I've ever been through in my life. But also, to this day, what I use for the biggest inspiration. My younger sister Marla, she worked as a lifeguard for a local lake called Merle Sarnowski. And one day after work, they were on their way home. My mom went to pick her up with my grandma. and they were coming back through our town, and about a mile from the house, a guy wasn't paying attention, pulling in a box truck, pulling a French fry trailer. And as they were coming down through, he didn't see the stop sign. And he ran the stop sign and hit my mom and my grandma and my sister. And unfortunately, my sister Marla, she didn't make it. And my mom was terribly injured, and my grandma. And what came after that was some of the hardest days that I've ever dealt with in my life. You know, for my parents, number one, there's nothing worse in life than losing a child, period. For my sisters, I had to be a symbol of strength. I had to be the one that they could look to and know that I don't know how, but I know it'll be okay. I will do whatever I need to do to make sure mom's okay, to make sure dad's okay, and to make sure they are okay. She's been my biggest inspiration since, and she never stepped foot in the woods. You know, like, she gave me an inspiration. I'm like, if you're gonna do something in life, go after what you love to do, because you got one life to live. And then in addition to that, months after she was killed, I remember sitting upstairs in my house and I looked over at that guitar, and I can remember my sister Marla playing that riff from Down on the Corner. And in that moment I said, you know what? I'm gonna learn how to play it. When I grabbed that guitar that day, I can still remember her playing that song and her smiling about it, because I was shocked that she even knew how to play it. And there was a moment there that I was like, this is it. This is how I stay connected to her. Music has been an unbelievable blessing in my life that has come through tragedy. I don't want anybody to look at me and say, you know, Nate's good at music. My goal has always been for when they watch me hunt or play music or be with my family or talk about my faith, I just want them to know that I love it. I love hunting. I love music. I love my faith. And I absolutely love my family with every ounce of me. Unfortunately, through that difficult time in losing my sister, I learned at a young age the value of time. And no matter what you do in life, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many deer you get, turkeys, how many shows you play, time will always be our greatest gift. You know, so I've taken that point in my life that was no doubt the hardest point of my life, and I've turned it into my biggest motivation. As I was in college, I always wanted to figure out a way to make a living in the outdoor business. I didn't necessarily want to host a TV show. I wasn't against it by any means. I grew up watching all the Monster Bucks VHS tapes. I still have a ton of them. If I was gonna work, I wanted to do something I loved. So my family supported me the whole way, but they said, look, you gotta get a college education, and then you can chase whatever you want to chase. So I got a college education. I graduated as an education major with a minor in communications. And then I started the quest to try to figure out, how do I get into the outdoor business? Reached out to another local Pennsylvania guy several times, trying to get him to come up and do a seminar, named Matt Moret. And always was a huge fan of his as a turkey caller growing up, and finally got the chance to connect with him. And he said, you know, we're looking for some field producers. Maybe you can go out to Iowa to Cedar Rapids and learn how to run a camera. So I was like, man, I'd love to. The next fall, I was on the road with Matt Moret and got to ride around with him and the guys from HS and film a bunch of deer hunts and turkey hunts, and, you know, be part of being a field producer on a hunting television show that I grew up watching. You know, I remember when that yellow and green truck pulled into my driveway, I thought I made it. I thought I was a rock star. So after about a year and a half with Hunter Specialties, I was at the Pennsylvania Sports Show, and I've been going to that show for as long as I can remember. And it was right around the time that HS had come out with the hen squealer. And Birdsong happened to be walking by, which I had known Randy because I had seen him and Jason Bosa on Whitetail Freaks down in Candy Show. I said, I'll sell you this call for $100. And, you know, we just kind of hit it off. He came over and we started talking. I told him I was a big fan of his work on Whitetail Freaks, and he had mentioned to me that he had this idea about doing this show called HeadHunters. And I was only supposed to help originally in the production aspect of things and help with filming. And I said, man, I'd love to, you know, I'd love to freelance with you guys and go out on some trips and run camera. And in the first season, the first couple hunts in, Randy said, you know, man, I've been thinking about it, and you know, what if we introduced you as a character on the show as well? You know, that'd be awesome. Once it was really a go, I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, you know, I'm kind of nervous. You know, I needed something that I felt like was going to get me over the idea of don't be nervous, don't be freaked out, don't be worried about who's watching. So I was like, you know what? I think face paint would help. Again, going back to my sister and the motivation of my sister, I was like, well, although she wasn't a hunter, through what I do, I'd like to use the good of her as an inspiration for me to not fear things. It was a bullseye for the online haters right from the start. You know, this guy's got faith. Who does he think is Batman? What does he play for Kiss? You know, all these different people would come at me with what I thought I was, and they were all completely wrong. You know, because if you watch the show, or if you've seen the show in the last 12 seasons, I'm not a villain by any means. You know, it's all in good fun. You would have kids all across the country tagging me, kids, men, women, tagging me with their face painted. But you know what? If it creates fun, and it creates good, and it creates somebody who's out in Wisconsin tagging me because their kid's going as Halloween, I'll tell you what, I'll take that every day, and I'll paint up every day that I hit the woods. I found so much happiness in simplicity of life. And all these years later, with my wife Tiffany, our boys Cruz and Nash, I mean, I am the image of living the dream through my family. I live every day trying my best to make sure that each and every second of each and every one of their days is better. All the amazing blessings of each day with them, with my buddies, with my family, with all of my friends, with everybody who watches our shows, that I cannot find the words to say how much I appreciate that each and every day. I can't find it.